we have an outline that we've given him, so he's going to start kind of on at the beginning of his career, and then share with you some of the things that he's learned along the way, and maybe about his journey. Um, so I'd like to introduce Marie to make our introductions. Okay.
Yes, I was very fortunate to host Nick during our production of the Magic Flute last spring, so I got to know him fairly well, and it was one of those things where when they left, it was an empty house feeling. You miss them. Both he and Nathan came the last week and stayed with us as well, but so Nick just really impressed me with his, not only his singing, but with all of his artistic abilities and um, all of the different things that he's been juggling and such that he'll probably talk a little bit about helping to form this Kenosha Opera Festival in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And so, I mean, he's a real go-getter, and I suggested him to be a clinician because I think it can give outside performers and stuff some ideas for the future, whether it's, professionally or just in their community or what have you. So I'll turn it over to Nick.
Cool. Well, hey, I for what it's worth, I really missed being there when I left. I've got my little Cheyenne when we visited Cheyenne thing. Uh, anyway, no, it was a great time being over at Opera Fort Collins, and we put on a great show, and it was a lot of good fun. And so when you asked me back for this, I was really excited to do it, just because it's a great group and it's a great company, and it's nice to be with you all again. So let's see. I'm a tenor. Work around singing opera. I give concerts, a lot of concerts this fall actually, and recitals, which is uncommon. You probably know that's something that's less and less happening for singers these days. Um, I also work for a social media marketing company that focuses on classical music and classical musicians, called Unison Media. And I'm on the socials side as well as the websites side of the company, both those divisions. And then, as was alluded to, I started an opera company in my hometown where I'm from, of Kenosha, Wisconsin. It was the Kenosha Opera Festival. We had three great seasons. We just wrapped our third seasons. We did a Barbara of Seville. That was great, good time. So as I was kind of looking back on this and looking over the outline you all sent, and thinking about what from my experience, my own career path, might be useful to say to a group like this, I kind of settled on this. I think I want to talk about accumulating experience, accumulating lots of experience, inside and outside of your own area of study or professional area, and how that can help you achieve your goals for your life. That doesn't necessarily mean that people can get a little obsessive. I know I was when I was young. Um, that you say no to things that are outside of your specific track, that you set for yourself, like when you picked your major area of study, for instance. A lot of people with drive and ambition can get really singular in their focus. And other things too, even just like your choice of school, can nudge you towards specializing in this or that. And there's nothing wrong with a specialty, but um, I definitely believe in having a broad category of skills. And as I go through some of my own experiences, I think I hope that will show why that's useful. Like if you go to conservatory, for instance, there are not necessarily as many chances to study other humanities or sciences. You're going to have to do the whatever the curriculum is, but you're going to be focused on, trying to get into the operas or starting that chamber group or whatever it is. It's really easy to let things whisk you away. But my recommendation and the insight from my life so far is the opposite. I think everybody should go out and get as many types of experience as they can, go in as many directions, just try to flourish wherever you can, and learn as much as you can. And then look at where all of those various strands have gone and see what you can weave out of that. So, my own personal background, where I started out in life. I was homeschooled actually. My mom had a real emphasis on the liberal arts, So you can see where I'm getting this philosophy from. And part of that was we had to learn not just the regular things that every kid learns, history, math, and science, but we had to learn uh, visual art, painting and sketching, as well as music. We had to take music lessons. And I did not get along with my piano teacher. She's a nice lady. It was not her fault, but I wanted to make music, and she was trying to teach me, finger patterns and just basic technique things. And it was a little bit of an oil and water situation. So I went to my mom and said, "Hey, I quit. I'm not doing piano anymore." She said, "Well, actually, yes, you are. You have to. You're getting a grade for that." So the compromise ended up being voice lessons, and that's how I got into singing. I had a pretty good aptitude for it as a kiddo, um, and so I started taking voice lessons. I was like 12 years old when that happened, and from there, I just sort of got more and more into it. There's a fun story about when I was actually pretty soon after that. I was about that age, I think 13 or 12 still. Um, there was a local symphony with a chorus, and they wanted to do the Mozart Requiem. So my voice hadn't changed yet. I was still an alto, and I went to sing in that Mozart Requiem, and or she wanted me to sing in the Mozart Requiem. My mom did, and I was just a stubborn mule, and I said, "No, I won't, and you can't make me." And we ended up striking a deal that if I did it and I got all the way to the end and gave the last performance, I would get a PlayStation 2, which feels like ancient history now. Yeah, I drive a hard bargain. Um, we're like up to PlayStation 5 now, I think. I don't know. I'm out of the loop on video games, but it was like the holy grail for like 12, 13-year-old me. Anyway, I really owe my mom a lot for pushing me in these directions that I may not have chosen for myself. Because what ended up happening was I was actually a fairly skilled musician by the time I got to college age. I was done with high school and I got a scholarship. And so I didn't really know if I wanted to do that with my life yet, but I said, well, I'll take the money. And so I majored in music. And after my first year, I didn't really do any music that summer. I had a job actually as a caricature artist at a theme park. Kenosha's near Chicago, and there's a big Six Flags there, and I drew caricatures there. And I realized how much I missed it, and I really wanted it in my life. So after that, I got really serious. I came back for my sophomore year, and I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, everybody tells me it's a really hard direction to take. Well, I'm going to take it really, really seriously. So I did. And I tried to be in everything that I possibly could, win every competition that was within my geographical reach, and the school concerto competition, everything, and just tried to hoover up those experiences. Um, from there, I went off to grad school, and that was a conservatory. I went to the Eastman School of Music, which is in upstate New York. Got my master's degree from there in opera, voice and opera, and literature. Interestingly, which is something I like about that program, that you learn the literature as well as how to sing. And I got some opportunities there. I was fortunate, sang a few roles and some concerts and things. And then from there, this is a track that maybe you're familiar with if you're adjacent to singing or studying singing. You go off to a young artist program. So in my case, actually, a lot of people think that tenors just kind of like have it made right away. It took me a year of auditioning, like I failed for a season, and then before I even got sort of like an entry level young artist program, and ended up getting a decent one actually by chance back in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, at the Florentine Opera, Milwaukee. And so I did my first young artist program there. And it was great. We did all kinds of cool pieces. We did Carlisle Floyd's last opera before he passed, The Prince of Players, and actually it was nominated for a Grammy. So it's funny, the serendipity of how these things come together. Here I am, just like a little dummy that didn't even know I was going to be a singer in this Grammy nominated recording. Partly by chance, partly by working hard. From there, I went off and did a summer program at Marilla in San Francisco. We created a new work by Jake Heggie that was written for us, which was one of the coolest. I don't know, some people really love new music and some people really don't love new music. And I am firmly a fence sitter about that, but I love doing that. Jake's music was great, and it was captivating, and it was an experience that just formed me. It's a personal dream to go back and sing at the San Francisco Opera just because I loved being there. But I did that, and then I did one more young artist program in Miami, the Florida Grand Opera, which was a great experience as well, except that it ended a little bit prematurely because that was the 2019-2020 season. So you all, I'm sure, can see this twist coming a mile away. COVID happened, and we were in the middle of a Rigoletto production, and it all fell apart. Everybody had to go home and start quarantining. Um, and we had, like, over the course of a weekend, we went from like being full steam ahead. We were like we were getting close to Tech Week, so we were about to go into the theater and do all of the stressful late nights that are associated with that. Um, and it was like a one weekend where that changed from that to uh, having to get out because the mayor of Miami said, if you're from here, hunker down, and if you're not from here, leave, don't stay. At that time, we had friends in Milan, and Milan was getting blockaded. So it was so early in the pandemic, we had no idea if that would happen in America or maybe in Miami. It was like a bright red hotspot. So it was a fearful time, and we ended up just hopping in the car. We were able to get our place packed up. We hopped in the car and we went to the only place we knew we could quarantine without being in contact with a person. We went to my dad's basement. So for like 2 weeks, we didn't see another soul, and that was where I decided to finally start that company I'd been thinking about. Um, and that was the first couple weeks of the pandemic where we were quarantined in the basement was when I called my friend and business partner, Kayla, who is a top-notch administrator, and her husband had just moved back to Kenosha just by chance before the pandemic. He was going to teach computer science at the college where we all went, Carthage College. And they came back, and she posted about their new house, and I saw that, and I called her, and I said, "Oh, that's great. He's going to teach. Oh, congratulations. Yeah. That's all great. I have an elevator pitch for you really quick." And I didn't waste any time trying to get her on board because she was so good as an admin. And thankfully, she said yes to join me on the venture, and the two of us built this company, the Kenosha Opera Festival. So um, I will drop that in the. I'll just start dropping links as I go, so you guys can see stuff in the chat. There's our website, the Kenosha Opera Festival. Went for about 3 seasons. We just finished that third season. Our Barbieri, we just finished, our Barbara Seville. It actually probably won't continue just because of all of our performance careers are taking off and going well. And so it means that none of us can be there in the summer anymore. So it's a shame in that regard, but it's also great because it means that we're doing well, all of us. So that's okay. It's a little bit sad for me, but it's also a sign of good things. So besides the actual doing of it, all the stuff we had to learn to do it, to put that on, it was so immense. The heavy lifting of starting something like that gave me a lot of lessons. I thought I'd pass a few of those on. Just talk for a minute about the company. One of the things I learned, I think we all know that there are many more young singers out there and more singers being produced at universities around the world than there are opportunities. It's known to be a tight market and a competitive one. But I saw it firsthand in a way that I think is really interesting, and I will try to kind of convey that. Because I often see singers taking rejection personally. You audition for 10 companies and you don't get any of them. And like I said, I was there my first year out of school. That was completely me. I just failed for like a year. And it's hard not to take it personally. But one of the things I try to convey is that if you stop and think about it, most times, 90% of the time, it's probably just a supply and demand thing. It's more likely that it's a business problem. It's not something to do with you or your art. There are 3 great tenors that year, and the other one is an inch taller, or the other one is, like a closer to matches the character profile more for dramatic things. So that's something I saw firsthand. This barber we just finished, I put out the call for, I needed a tenor for my lead Alma Viva, and I needed some low voices for like the Basilio and Bartolo. And I put that call out and I said, the mezzo role's already cast, the soprano role's already cast. I had a Rosina in mind when I chose the show, and then I used this wonderful local soprano. We wanted to use local people. For the soprano role, the maid in the house. And my spreadsheet was positively overflowing with sopranos who were wildly overqualified to play this part of the maid. from Europe, from all over the US, Canada, and Mexico, who had somehow found out, managers like management companies, had somehow found out about my tiny little startup company and that we were doing a barber with orchestra. And that's all they cared about, was that it was a barber with orchestra and they could pick up that role. And so even though I specifically was asking for these two voice types and not the others, my spreadsheet, I actually had to start Control F word searching for the roles that I was looking for because it was so full of other people that I just couldn't use. There was no way I could hire any of those others, let alone all of them. So when you see something like that happen, I think it puts into perspective, especially for those of us who are not sopranos. I think a lot of us know it's hard to be a soprano out there. It's real competitive, but you see something like that and you realize that's what people are up against. And I think for me, it gave me permission to forgive myself for not getting things, for not clinching every single audition. Maybe you gave the best audition in the world and you're just not what they're looking for today. That's okay. And that's probably almost always what's going on. Um, there's just somebody who's a slightly better pick and they went with them, or 300. So um, that sort of takes me to another thing I like to talk about in reference to the opera festival. I was really glad to be doing it because given that there's such a like supply demand imbalance, the scales are so out of whack, it was really cool to be able to create new opportunities, put new productions together where I could hire people. And instead of being one more person on that spreadsheet, hoping that I would get the role, I was creating opportunities for other people. I could hire somebody else and maybe put some weights on the other side of that scale for once. So when you create a company like that, you not only have a venture that you can use as a side hustle, or maybe if you can grow it, it could become a full-time job for you later on, still in your chosen industry, even if you're not singing. Uh, but also, you're creating those new opportunities. It's a big deal. Just seeing how many people there were out there and how hungry they were, um, it made me realize we need more of that. We need small companies like Opera Fort Collins, like Kenosha Opera Festival, out there putting on shows. And even if you're singing, like this was my COVID project basically, and we thought maybe it'll continue, maybe it won't, but this is something that many of us can do, and I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. It's something to think about because even though it's stopping for us because our singing careers are going full bore, we were able to hire those people for those 3 years. We're also able to learn all of these things, and it influenced my career in a big way, which I'll get to in a little bit, talking about my media firm. Um, but all of the skills you learn, you might learn finance, grant writing, legal. That's just to name a few. In my case, I learned all that stuff, but also learned and had opportunities to promote and do marketing a lot more than I otherwise would have. And probably most importantly, our team at the festival learned how to teach ourselves all kinds of skills and teach each other. Um, I knew some grant writing things, but Kayla, my business partner, taught me a lot of institutional grant writing things. I showed her a lot of marketing things that I had picked up and I had done for other small companies. You can learn pretty much whatever you want to learn. It's a golden age. Just go on YouTube, just Google something. There's free software out there. There's pretty much nothing standing between you and having a grade A personal brand or the skills to do presentational work that you could sell to companies or others. There's nothing standing between you and that but time. And I'm happy to recommend softwares and stuff that are free or very affordable online later. So, but the big picture point out of all this is that whether you've learned those skills, I personally learned like 5 different pieces of software that I use, or maybe you're learning about social media and like algorithms, how that works, website tools for me, it's Wix and Webflow. Um, you can pretty much turn any of that into additional income, which helps you fuel your artistic career, or it gives you additional skills you can pivot into something else. Maybe you want to be more stable. I know a lot of my friends during the pandemic decided to go to law school or go get that MBA or whatever, and that's great. Every time somebody does that, I kind of applaud because there's really no right or wrong way about it. It's a hard grind being a freelancer, and I think we all know that getting in. And if you try it and you go, no thanks, that's not a bad thing. That's just one more piece of information that is in your toolbox, in your arsenal, that's teaching you what you want and what you want to pursue and what you like, what you're good at. So, speaking of pivoting into other industries, here's a couple more links. I started doing graphics and media work. Coming back to that point from before, I started leveraging those things into jobs. I started with a couple of small individual jobs. I edited a stream of Madame Butterfly, did a couple cut ads for opera companies, and then eventually I got this job with Unison Media. So like I said, I work in those two separate divisions, on the websites team and also the social media team for some of our clients. And our office is in Brooklyn. I've actually never been there. I work fully remotely. And isn't that kind of fun?
Yeah.
Next time I go for an audition, I just haven't yet since I was hired, but I'm going to go check it out and meet everybody in person, shake some hands. But yeah, I've never ever been to our office. But that doesn't stop me from working like roughly half time at this company in both these divisions. And what it really does is allow me some flexible income, additional income to my singing work, or when I have like an uneven season, like right now. My fall is jam-packed. It's kind of wild. I don't know if you can see these bags, but I'm a tired guy right now. But my spring schedule is very light. So it's nice because it allows me to say yes to all these things and do them and accomplish them. Go to Fort Collins and sing a magic flute on short notice. And then when I don't have anything going on, I can scale up and make money that way. Bring stability and freedom, not just to finance my life as we all have to do, but I can still be aggressive as a tenor and really push forward in this way. So definitely recommend looking for work like this.
So can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Can you also type on those two programs that you talked about that you use for your website?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and then can you sing for us or demonstrate some of your
Yes, I have two, and I have a spot in here where I was going to play one of those.
Okay, all right.
Actually. No, that's okay. Wix is the one I would recommend. Webflow is like another one that I use if you're interested in learning very, very technical web stuff. I'm getting paid to learn that at the firm right now, which is nice. It's always fun to get that sort of thing. But Wix is the one I recommend because it's very user friendly. It's kind of like a drag and drop system, but you can be very specific and make it look just how you want. So you can make a beautiful, beautiful website with Wix.
And is your website, can you put your website for your personal website?
Yes.
Because that's always helpful for young artists to go and look at other people's websites and what kind of things are included and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's my website. That's actually a Wix website there. And so is the Huff.graphics. I haven't splurged on the extra, like the expensive one to take away the little Wix banner on Huff.graphics. But on my singing one, Nicholas Huff.bw, I have. So you can kind of see the differences there. But so anyway, this has been a great, as soon as I finish this thought right here, I think we'll do our first music. But this has also had the quirk of kind of like connecting me with people in the industry who I may otherwise have never had access to. If you go to the Unison website, you can see who our clients are. It's all kinds of great people. And I obviously don't talk to them about myself as a singer because they're at Unison for help with promotional and tech issues. But now they know my name and face. And so this just serves to sort of make the point that it kind of doesn't matter if you're doing specifically singing or not. If you're orienting things around your life with all your different skill sets, with your goal in mind, you can grow that network lots of different ways. And these things can all come in to help you in ways you might not even be able to think about right now. So let's have our first little piece of music. I was told to curate a couple of options. So this first one is, I'm going to screen share. It is an aria from The Daughter of the Regiment, and it's well known. It was Pavarotti's like signature piece for a while there. Here we go. And I sing it too. It's called A mes amis. And if you need to turn up your own volume, feel free to. I think we did a little sound test before this to sort of get it as high as we could, but FYI. This one's a little softer, the next one is less so. Try to go to full screen, but the button's covered. There we go.
À mes amis, jour de fête, je vais marcher sous vos drapeaux. À mes amis, jour de fête, je vais marcher sous vos drapeaux. L'amour qui m'a tourné la tête, désormais me rendonero. À quel bonheur! Oui, mes amis, je vais marcher sous vos drapeaux, je vais marcher sous vos drapeaux. Oui, celle pour qui je respire, à mes voeux alignés sourire, et ces doux espoirs de bonheur troublent ma raison et mon cœur. À mes amis, un jour de fête, je vais marcher sous vos drapeaux. À mes amis, un jour de fête, je vais marcher sous vos drapeaux. Je vais marcher sous vos drapeaux. Je vais marcher. À mes amis, je vais marcher sous vos drapeaux.
Okay, so there is that. That is an oldie but a goldie. Um, I like start all the auditions with that. Actually, I started doing my Mozart first because if you do something else. They always pick your Mozart usually, you know? So I was like, I'm gonna do my Mozart, and then that way they can kind of hear whatever they want. Some people sort of think I should sing that kind of rap. Some people think I should sing some other kind of rap. I started with my Mozart for once, and they picked that anyway. So I was like, whatever, never mind. Oh my gosh. Let me just get out of my. Oh, I see what's going on. I'm still sharing, am I?
No, I think you're good.
Oh, all right. Good deal. Here we go. So yeah, that is. We've got one more, but I'll do that later. So that's sort of the place that I was left off. Actually, that video is a couple years old now. I need to replace it, but it's I think that was the last performance I did before we had to leave Miami. That was at Florida Grand. But you know, it's life. It's how things go. Anyway, this kind of brings me back to the whole singing career thing. So, you know, there's all these other skills that you can accumulate over your time. Some of them may feel more connected or less connected to your ultimate goal of like, being a singer or working in the classical music industry. But more to the point, one of the things that drew me to social media and my job at Unison is that it can really actually help you more than you may realize. So I was sort of group testing some of my ideas to things to talk about yesterday when we tested this, and they said definitely talk about social media. So it can provide a little legitimization, a little legitimacy for you. Things that you may not think about, small details on your social media make an impact. People, it can give them a positive impression of you without them even really consciously thinking about it. Things like, do you have a following on your social media? Are you posting materials that look really winning and really nice all the time on your socials? Things that will make a good impression. Something else you should think about online is having control and precedence over your info and your materials. So like, for instance, having a really nice professional website. I was talking about website as being kind of like the front office of your business, but online. It's maybe not where everybody's going to go right away. They'd rather call, they'd rather send a letter. That's fine, but it should be there in case anyone needs to make an appointment, you know? So having a nice website, and that's also a great way to control how things look online, because you can rank up in the Google search results so that the first thing somebody sees when they Google your name is what you want them to see and not what somebody else has said about you or posted or whatever. Sometimes that's fine. But you know, you want to be the one to present to put your right foot forward. God, that aphorism really gave me trouble just there. And another thing you can do aside from that is amplify your successes. So like if you win a job, you get cast in a role or something, or you give a great recital, maybe you get a good review, something like that. You can use these tools to amplify that and get a lot of kudos and credit. We used to have fellows at the festival, and I would always tell them, you know, our whole lives we're taught to be modest, and that's a good thing. I'm not going to advocate against modesty, you know, we don't want to be immodest, but just imagine that you have like a little gremlin on your shoulder, like kind of a devil on your shoulder, and that you keep him away most of the time, but just every now and then, maybe like once a week, once a month, whatever posting schedule you can keep up, just let that little attention gremlin out and let him be like, give me attention. And everybody will have to pay attention to you for a moment, and then that's done and over with, and you put them away again until next time. So just compartmentalizing things in your life in a way where you can use these tools to get that attention for the sake of your career. You have to start thinking of your career as a business, and so it's not about your personal modesty. You know, brands advertise, and so social media is one free way where you can do that. And things like websites, which may not be free, but they're affordable. Those are all a big deal, and I'm happy to talk more about that after this. I'm trying to leave a little time for Q&A as well, if people have more questions. So some conclusions from all of this. Experience is always useful. Even if you hate an experience, that just tells you, that refines your understanding of what you don't want to do next time. And that's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is that you find that you like or are good at a lot of other things. And that gives you options, no matter where you choose to go with your life, whether you're going hard on becoming a full-time singer, or maybe you pivot into something a little more stable, which is understandable, or whatever you do, if you want to weave your life into something satisfying and maybe even great, you need to have been collecting those strands all along the way of experience over your time, so that you have some material to work with as you weave things together. So that's kind of my thesis. That's what I think about things, and that's what I've been taught over the course of my career up to this point. Um, I'm going to go into the chat and have a little look. Um, if there are any questions posted yet, not yet, but that's okay. If anybody did have any questions, feel free to chime in. We talk about stuff. If you want to talk about social media or how to use that as a business tool instead of just using it as a user, happy to talk about that, or recommendations for tools and things, ways to get more work, anything. I'll tell you my Monopoly strategy if you ever want to play board games. That's good. Catan fans out there, we could talk about that too.
Do I need to send a message in the chat, or can I just ask you now?
Yeah, I don't mind if you just ask. Yeah.
So when it comes to social media, at least from what I do right now, it's mainly just if I have an event coming up, post about it. Sometimes it gets a lot of views and likes and whatever, and sometimes it doesn't. What are the main media outlets for one thing that you use typically? So
Sure.
like Facebook or Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. I always recommend to people that they think about what they are able to produce and then also how often they want to post. So, for in terms of like the algorithm and getting help, getting amplified for your post so you get more views more often or more likes more often, and it shows your post to people that maybe aren't in your network directly. Um, the big There's no secret. The big thing to doing that is obviously posting quality stuff and posting really regularly. So it's kind of a catch-22 for artists because, yeah, we all want to post when we have our thing coming up. We're trying to promote it or amplify, get those kudos for something that we're doing. And so it's hard to like be consistent sometimes just because it's like, well, I have the opera in the spring, but in the fall, I'm just taking classes or just whatever it is. So I would recommend just starting with what you think you can keep up. If that's like a picture, every so often, like, hey, I just did this audition. It's great to be in St. Louis, or I just did this audition. It's great to be in New York. That's fine. And I would recommend sticking to like Facebook and Instagram, maybe Twitter if that's your vibe. TikTok is a great one because it'll show your stuff to a lot of people, but it's obviously a video platform, so you have to be able to create video. And that, I don't know, it depends on who you are. Like if you like to like do skits and participate in trends, then maybe TikTok is awesome for you. And that gives you more material that you could post on Instagram and Facebook. But if not, like I created a TikTok for a client who's like a 40-something tenor. And he's a very funny guy, but we had to like kind of rework our thought process at the social team because like they were used to posting to Instagram. So often they would just like make a graphic when he was like announcing his season or whatever. And I was like, but we can't use that on TikTok, guys. So I ended up, recreating what they'd done, but in video format. But like, yeah, just kind of start with from there, I would say. Just what can I do? What can I make? If that's like a picture when you're on the plane to your audition, or you're at school auditioning for the whatever the fall show is, or you know what I mean? Like whatever you can consistently create that, and then find the platform that works for. So Instagram's a favorite because everybody's on it, and Facebook, I would say. Yeah. TikTok's fun though. I'm getting into that one. I'm starting to figure that one out more. It's like me and a bunch of like 13-year-olds. So it feels weird sometimes, but and my 40-year-old client. But you find your people after a while too. Like there's a bunch of like doctors and lawyers on TikTok and stuff, and there's actually opera companies on TikTok now, not as many as like Instagram, but you can find them. They're out there. I have to find them because I got to tag them usually, so they're out there. But yeah, there's a lot of that stuff out there. And it's funny, like I recently had an experience. I was consulting for a new social media group called Stage Time, and they're just for classical artists. And we were talking about like kind of what's the purpose of having a niche social media like that, where your growth is going to be limited for sure, because there are fewer classical musicians in the world than the whole population, right? So like Facebook can theoretically get all 8-10 billion by the time we reach 10 billion on the planet. If you could put a cell phone and Wi-Fi in everybody's hand, they could have all humans as users. That's not true of like a niche one like stage time. So what's kind of like the point? And I told this story to them. I'll tell you about somebody out there, a great soprano. I don't really know her, but uh, um, Lopez is her name, Violetta Lopez. She sings like Traviata all over the place. And she and I found each other on Instagram and just ended up following each other. Me, I followed her because I thought her Traviata sounded great. And I don't know why she followed me, but she did. And I then met her in real life and we kind of both did like a double take. We were like, do we know each other? And we didn't really, but we knew each other's faces. We'd seen each other's posts. So we kind of had that like parasocial thing that people have on like social media and like with celebrities and stuff. We felt that we knew each other. And that was like, for me, the coolest evidence of why social media is worth your time. It's an awful vapid place most of the time. So like take care of yourself and make sure that you're doing what you need to do to like not get sucked in and feel like crap about your life. But also somebody who's like a prominent singer knew me. And that was like huge, you know. If I ever do a job with her, that'll be like a funny thing to laugh about. And we'll be like, remember we like knew each other, didn't know each other this whole time. Those are the kind of circumstances we're talking about where you can get like tangible benefits out of being active out there. Pretty cute.
So there's a question for you in the chat.
Oh, tell us about getting an agent. When do you need one? Well, this is a great question. It's genuinely different for everybody, and at the risk of giving a non-answer, I'll try not to do that. It's so different for everybody that you kind of have to just basically set the parameters of like, when would this be useful? What can I bring to the table to get them interested in me as well? That's something young singers don't often, or young artists don't often think about. They want to know, agents and managers, which are similar but not exactly the same, want to know that you can you're attractive to companies already. They don't want to have to do all of the lifting to get you gigs. Because at the end of the day, all they can really do is leverage their network and then send you out for auditions. Sometimes they'll be able to land you a gig without an audition, maybe if they know someone well or the person there knows you or whatever, you know, there's circumstances. But basically you have to build up things to the place where that manager goes, they have something to manage. There's already something there and I can pick that up and I can sell that in my network. So I like to think of managers and agents as just basically like, it's kind of like buying into a web, a network of people that you can then use to get more work. When is kind of determined by when you have enough steam. That's why I was like, is this going to be a non-answer? Because when you have enough steam is so individual, you know. Some people, my wife is a wonderful soprano, but it took her years to pick up that steam. And now she's getting great young artist programs and great summer work and courting managers. But in my opinion, she was artistically ready for that years ago. But it's not about that. It's not about you as an artist even, which is kind of frustrating because that's what we're all here to be. But anyway, let's see. We got another one from Amy. What are some routines or tricks that you use to take extra care of your voice? Yeah. So avoid some things, and at the end, not smoking. Yeah, that's good. Don't smoke. That's not healthy. I mean, you know, Pavarotti smoked and he was fine, but just in general, I think it's a safe recommendation. Just avoid it if you can, especially for singers. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I think the biggest one is just being hydrated because it's so easy. This has been kicking my butt lately because I've been on planes so much because I've been like trying to cram my auditions in between these like concerts and recitals. So I'm like gone for a weekend for a recital, and then the week between I'm like in New York or in Chicago for a thing. and it's just super easy to get dried out and like die, especially because you have to ditch your water before you go through TSA and then like refill it. And if you're running to your plane or whatever, then you're like sitting there just like becoming a raisin until somebody some wonderful stewardess comes by with some water. But um I would say just it's more about like personal upkeep. Like there are some tricks that I've encountered. Like I had a really awful cold in the before times when you wouldn't get like thrown out of town for sneezing. But I had an awful cold and I just had to sing through it. We didn't have any covers or anything, so even then we were being careful not to spread. But I had to sing. I like took a lemon shot, a lemon juice shot. It just strips everything out immediately, and that's a useful little trick. But the advice I would give is just like be taking care of yourself, like in your life. Be eating well, be staying hydrated. I personally hate drinking water actually, so it's like not it's not something that I'm saying flippantly like, oh, this is easy, just stay hydrated. I find it extremely annoying. I'd rather have coffee and a old fashioned. But you know it's important, and I actually have noticed it in my singing. Like as I get older, I'm closing in on 30 now. Everything's still healthy and working well, but I really have to like properly warm up. There was a time in my life where I just kind of roll out of bed and be like, is this good? Yeah, we're good. And like that's not a good practice. And it's not something that I can do anymore because, you have to be taking care of yourself in your life. And so, some things like aging will teach those lessons, but also just knowing that it's important ahead of time, and just, like eating something green now and then and drinking water. Those are all good habits to be in for your life, but also for being a singer.
Nicholas, I had a question, and I'm
Sure.
I'm Stephen Aguilar West. I'm the artistic director now for Opera Fort Collins.
Oh,
So
great.
thank you so much for doing this and being in front of everyone here. So thank you.
Fun. It's great to meet you.
Yeah. So I had a question. I mean, I guess if you can tell us all about the importance of being prepared, especially for the very first rehearsal. And then what are maybe some of your indications of like, I know that I'm well prepared because I've reached, I don't know, maybe these benchmarks in my process of learning the role.
Absolutely. That's a big one. Especially I find that that's a big one. Going from being a student to being a pro, like there are a lot of students out there, nobody present, I'm sure, who have like had it kind of spoon fed to them in school. They go every day for all semester, and they're doing their opera scenes or whatever, and the person at the piano, if you don't know it, they go, oh, it goes like this, and then they tell you and show you. Well, that's not how it works in the pro world. You are meant to show up. Most people I think know this intellectually, but you're meant to show up ready. You should be able to just sing it. If there's a bobble here or something about ensemble there, nobody gets too bent out of shape. That's natural, but you should know the material. You should know that material and be pretty much ready to put your score down and sing it, be memorized. The only reason you should have a score by the time you get to rehearsal is to like mark down your blocking. Sometimes people even set down the score and have a notebook instead. It's a little less unwieldy. And it's very important. I did an opera, a modern work called Mrs. President, the first year out of grad school, and the composer was there, Victoria Bond, and she was conducting. And we came for the first day. It was just a piano run of the opera to sit down and do it all together, and that's fairly typical. A lot of places will do that. And the guy who is playing the main role, it's like a charismatic preacher guy, but he's kind of like evil. Good like twist at the end. He's got this great aria called Dewdrop, and it's a sermon, and it's like inspirational and like wow. And I've been telling myself I should learn it for years. And he didn't know it. He didn't know the first scene. He didn't know his aria, and it became like clear fairly quickly that he just didn't know any of it. And so what we did was take a break, and everybody was like, we were all told just like go get some water, go hang out. And we came back, and he was gone. He was no longer there for the entire production. I don't even know his name actually. He literally was gone in an instant, and they flew somebody in, and that's the thing. Uh, Stephen, I don't know if you're here for this part or not, but earlier we were talking about how many singers there are, and it's not competitive because like people are sure mean. It's competitive because there are so many singers and not nearly as many opportunities. And that's the thing. If you come and you're not ready, I hate to say things that are too harsh, but like you are easily replaceable, and for pretty affordable. I mean, unless you're doing something where like you need this specialist singer and like there's only three in the world, most times that could happen to you. Um, we're all human, and we need to give ourselves the breathing room to be okay as we're doing hard things like learning an opera score. But that doesn't mean that the end result should not be that it's ready when you show up. That's what it has to be. That's the professional standard. And our industry is different than others in that respect. I mean, in music theater, sometimes you just get the score on day one. Like you couldn't really prepare because you didn't even have the score. And so some people, crossover artists, takes a little adjusting. I've heard people talk about that before, but in opera, that is what it is. It just has to be. Because these are all nonprofit companies. Their operating margins are extremely thin. They're probably, if it was a traditional business, they would be taking a loss every year, but because of grants and donations, they are able to keep it going. So it's one of those things where it's not even like they're being harsh. They just don't have the time for somebody that's not ready to go. You just have to be. So not to belabor
Yeah,
it.
thank you. Thank you for saying that. Is
It's
there? I mean, it's true. It's true. There's just so many people. I mean, and there are going to be people that just don't necessarily come prepared even on the first rehearsal. And so I guess this also, I mean, like just to kind of link it with Jane's next question too, are there any kind of places where as you're practicing along, you go, wow, I'm really starting to get this, or is there like, say, like if you're able to speak the words without the music, is that a good indication to that you're really starting to sink in? Like,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of practicing to memory. So like getting it right the first time and trying to make, I mean, you're going to have to do repetitions. That's what practice is. You repeat until you know it down pat, until you're memorized. But if you can get something like that, like the first pass, say, okay, I'm going to get the melody. And then after that, I'm going to get the words. And maybe by the end of the day, I'll know this scene. I'll have it nearly memorized. And then with repetition, it'll sink in and be concrete. That's how I do it. Often what I'll do is if it's a new work and they don't send me like a practice track or anything, and I just have to play it, because I've been traveling so much now, what I'll actually do is put it into a music processing thing, or sit down at the piano and record myself playing, and then I can listen to that on the airplane or in the airport or in my hotel room. So I don't even need a piano necessarily. I would just recommend getting creative. Basically, do whatever you have to do to be there and be prepared, because life is just gonna get complicated and busy and maybe a little bit hard. It's being a freelancer is hard, like we were talking about before, and having those little tools in your back pocket. Like I love to use the recording thing. I walk around everywhere with my like earbud and YouTube anyway, so it's super easy for me to just switch over. In fact, right now I was just marking timestamps in my score. My next let's see, it's not my next one, but the one after that I'm learning is La Rondine in St. Louis, and it's Puccini, so there's all these like, it's very like melodic and beautiful, but there's all these like little conversational interjections, and I find those really hard to get nailed. So I've actually just got like timestamps where I can I've uploaded my thing to YouTube, and I've got a recording where I know minute 13.3 is the spot that I have trouble with, and just go to that and listen to it, and then I'll hit the back thing and go back a minute and do it again, and just you can be practicing literally anywhere, because you don't have to necessarily sing every time. If it's about memory or something, there's lots of ways. You've got to practice every day, of course, but like there's other stuff you can do to be productive and get yourself up to snuff without wearing out your voice.
Thank you, Nicholas.
So Nick, we're just about done here. We've almost reached our hour. Can you maybe do one more demonstration of your singing, and Then if
Sure.
people can ask questions, if they have any more questions, type them in while we're hearing him sing, and then we'll try to wrap it up. So
Okay, let me share my screen here.
thank you.
This one is a little more recent recording of. I thought it would be fun because we did Magic Flute in English when I was there. This is Die Spieltnis in German.
Dies Wildnis ist bezaubernd schön, wie noch kein Auge je gesehen. Ich fühle es, ich fühle es, wie dies Wetter bebt, mein Herz mit neuer Regung erfüllt. Mein Herz mit neuer Regung erfüllt. Dies Welt, was kann ich zwar nicht nennen, doch schon ist hier wie Feuer brennen. Soll die Empfindung Liebe sein, soll die Empfindung Liebe sein. Ja, ja, die Liebe ist allein. Die Liebe, die Liebe, die Liebe ist allein. Oh, wenn ich sie nur finden könnte, oh, wenn sie doch schon vor mir stände, ich fühle, fern und rein, was würde ich? Ich würde sie von Entzücken an diesen heißen Busen drücken. Und ewig wäre sie dann mein. Und ewig wäre sie dann mein. Und ewig wäre sie dann mein. Ewig wäre sie dann mein. Ewig wäre sie dann mein.
Okay, there is that. Oh, Mozart. Everybody's favorite thing to call at the audition. Um, yeah, so that's Die Spitness, which is every tenor that sings Mozart does that one. But an old fave. It's a good one. Um, yeah, I don't know if we're out of time. I am actually writing a message back to you right now, Amy. Yeah, but since we're out of time, if you just message me on Facebook or send an email, I don't know if that's in here, but anybody can send me an email. I will copy down what I'm writing, and actually, let me just add it here to the chat.
Yeah, and just type in your email and the people, if they want to
There you go.
continue. Okay.
Yeah, if you have any questions, just reach out. Yeah, what I was gonna get at in that was there's a great masterclass Pavarotti did. I think it was at Yale. I forget where, but if you do a little searching, you'll find it. There's this tenor he's working with, and they're talking about vomitare, spilling the sound forward, or in Italian that's like to vomit, vomitare, and it's that like sensation of like ah. That's a big thing because you still want that like balance of chiaro and oscuro, but it's in my experience like that's the biggest thing. It's just like literally putting your mouth in a place where the sound is going to spill out, because if you do that and then you have the breath control, little appoggio, um, that's when you start getting that really crystalline ringing thing. So without having heard you, I wouldn't want to go too far down any direction. Maybe you need more oscuro. I don't know, but but that was a helpful one for me. So would recommend finding it. But yeah, and if anybody has questions, always feel free to reach out.
So on behalf of Opera Fort Collins, thank you all for joining us for our Career Paths online clinic with Nick Huff. And those who participated this afternoon, we welcome your response to our clinic. You please send us an email at info at Opera Fort Collins and respond. We'd like to have some feedback. Thank you, Nick, for sharing your journey as an active artist with us. And special thanks to the Denver Lyric Opera Guild for supporting Opera Fort Collins through a grant, which is helping to fund this series of Zoom clinics. So thank you everybody for coming. I think I can stop the recording. I don't know.